Okay, we're going to take a look at your inventory pipeline systems. And in general, looking in front of you, we'll start by paying attention to the three tabs down here at the bottom of your screen. And you can see we start with listing inventory pipeline, we have a buyer inventory pipeline, and then a pending inventory pipeline as well. We're going to start here with the listing inventory, which is up on the screen in front of you. And you can see the listing inventory pipeline contains three sections. Our first section here is our active listing section. Our next section is our listing agreement signed and waiting to go active section. And then finally, we have the listing leads section where we have no listing agreement signed yet, but hoping to soon. Up at the top, I think most agents do have an active listing chart that they maintain all of their current active listings, and we've got that here too. And then we have listing agreement signed. We're waiting to go active. We're having the home staged. We're getting ready to take photos. Maybe some work is still being done to the home before we put it live up on the multiple listing service. Pretty normal as well. Most of our focus goes down to this third category, the listing leads sections. These are people that we know that are going to sell their home. Likely in the next 6 months, maybe even a year. So these are actually hot listing leads that we need to stay in constant contact with to add value with over time. They're usually set up on a listing e-alert email drip so that they're getting an email every time a listing in their neighborhood comes up for sale. We may have them set up on a seller lead follow-up action plan in our CRM as well too. And so that way when we log into our CRM, we're remembering to stay in touch, to follow up, to try to come from contribution and add value, whether it's to let them know about a new listing that went on the market that might affect the value of their home. It might also be a listing in their neighborhood went under contract or even sold that could change the value of their home. So any MLS status change is a good reason to reach out and stay in contact. It could be trying to help them with any work they need to do to their home, getting some of your preferred vendors out there, or whether to make maybe even just for you to swing by and help and make a decision whether some work should be done or what type of work needs to be done. But we're staying in touch constantly by trying to add value, trying to keep them up to date and educated on how the values are changing in the neighborhood with each new listing status that comes up. So again, we really want to focus on these. Very important with real estate teams to go through this every week at your weekly team meeting, because other members of the team, for example, buyers agents may be working with buyers, showing them property that still have a home to sell. And if that's the case, those buyers are also sellers. And so if we show this at a team meeting, we want to make sure that we don't have any sellers like that we need to add to this list so we can start adding value from the listing side as well. Very important because that does increase urgency. People that want to move oftentimes can't find the motivation to move. And if you're showing them property repeatedly and they're not on this list here, that means they're not really staying up to date on the value of the current home that they need to sell, which really is putting the horse in front of the cart. We need to focus on the home they need to sell first. Because what happens if they find a home they want to buy and they still don't even have their home even close to being on the market? Their dream home that they want to buy might not even be possible. They might lose out on it to some other buyer that is ready to go. So it's very important we start getting them in a situation with their current home where they are ready to make the move just in case they find something. And oftentimes they start working towards listing their home or even get a plan together to put their home up for sale. They start to look for homes with a lot more urgency. Once they look for homes with a lot more urgency, they tend to get into action and find a home to buy much more quickly, much more efficiently, which means buyers agents, or at least an agent showing them homes, does not need to show nearly as many homes since people are looking with purpose. So we're always trying to grow this number down here. We want this to grow. We want to stretch this out and get as large of a pipeline as possible. And then as we start getting listing agreements signed, we're moving these people up into the listing agreement signed and waiting to go active category until ultimately they do go active, and then we're showing our active listings up here at the top. And this really starts to give us a very good idea of the future. We can see with our active listings, depending on how long it's taking homes to sell in your area, we can see how our production looks over the course of the next 2 to 6 months. With our active listings, maybe a little further out with our listing agreement signed and waiting to go active category. And then we can generally look at our production for the rest of the year, at least on the listing side, with how many we have in our pipeline of listing leads that we're staying in contact with. And as for the buy side, we really do something similar. And to do that, we just go down to our worksheet tab at the bottom and go to our buyer inventory pipeline. So clicking on our buyer inventory pipeline, we're going to see something similar. We just put it in 2 categories here. At the top, we have all of our current buyer leads whom we have had signed buyer agency agreements, or BAAs. So all of these buyer leads have signed buyer agency agreements. They are under contract to work exclusively with us, and they are looking they are actively looking for homes, some more than others. And you can see that we've got a section here as to whether we've gotten them pre-qualified, so we can really put a focus on getting those people pre-qualified with a lender. And you'll see this team, which we've used as an example, has most of theirs pre-qualified. Some they're still working on. And then you're going to see, again, this is for a real estate team. This is a pipeline for a real estate team. So they actually track down here the number of buyer agency agreement that each buyer agent on the team has listed up above. So they can really start to get a tally and a scoreboard, so they can start to A, compete against each other a little bit, and B, start to really grow their own individual buyer agent pipelines, because we really want to treat buyers just like listings. We want to grow that inventory. If we grow that inventory, if we have an agent with, say, 30 buyer agency agreements signed and actively looking, you can pretty much count on anywhere from 4 to 7 buyers going under contract per month, depending on the market, of course. So what we can do, rather than focusing on getting buyers to buy a house, we can focus on growing our pipeline. If we grow our pipeline, we will never be pushing any one buyer into buying a house or getting frustrated when they keep looking. We just want to grow a really big pipeline of buyers so that we can always just count on a certain number of them going under contract and pending at any given time. So below that tally, you can see we've got our active buyer leads. They don't have a buyer agency agreement signed, but they are actively looking for home. And all of these leads down here, in our lead follow-up campaigns, these might be our A leads or our hot leads. These are people that are actively looking, you've met in person, or we're getting ready to start actively showing them property. So these are our hottest leads for those of you that are doing A, B, and C, or hot, warm, and cold leads in your CRMs for lead follow-up campaigns. These would be your A or hot leads. These are people that are actively looking, that we're trying to stay in constant contact with, so we're setting them up on a buyer lead follow-up campaign that has frequent contact. Again, they're all set up on listing e-alert searches, where they're receiving listings regularly for homes that fit the criteria that you've set them up on in either your CRM or your local MLS auto prospecting system. And these are people we're staying in contact. And again, we're just like with listings, we're trying to grow this bottom category down here so that we are getting a lot in our pipeline. And again, we're staying in contact until we can get them to a buyer consultation appointment, where we can get them to agree to work with us on a more exclusive basis, where we really can carve out a plan for us to continuously show them homes in a very efficient manner until they find the home they want to buy. So again, we focus here. And again, by focusing on these people in our weekly team meetings, by going through these inventory pipelines, just like with listings, we can draw attention over here to the buyer's side. That way, we know who we need to be focusing on to stay in touch with. And again, if we have all of our active buyer leads up here, again, the listing agents, we can actually see, okay, which one of our listing agents do we need to motivate? Because all of our listing clients that are also looking for a home to buy in our area, hopefully with us, they need to be actively looking on the buying side too, because that will create urgency for them to A, get their home on the market, and B, to get very realistic with their price as well. So again, anytime we have a person that is listing and buying, we A, want to make sure we capture them on both ends of that transaction, or in each transaction, and we can represent them both ways. We also want to make sure we're motivating them both ways. So again, with listings, the quickest way to get them to get their home off the market is get them to start seeing homes they want to buy. So it's very important to focus on these. So buyers agents and listing agents on real estate teams also can communicate with one another to make sure that we are actually pushing them forward in both aspects, the listing and buyer side of their current home and the new home they want to buy. So we're always focusing on this and trying to grow this section as large as possible. So we're going to ask the listing agents, who's going to be buying soon? Who can we add to this list? And for you solo agents that are using these pipelines, same deal. You need to kind of jar both sides of your brain and make sure, hey, who on the listing side should I be thinking about as a buyer, really trying to motivate them into finding their new home. That'll help me get them into action and a little bit more aggressive on the listing side of their home. So that's our buyer inventory pipeline as well too. Now we're going to look at our pending inventory pipeline, and this one's not so exciting because most agents do keep one of these. This is our pending inventory pipeline, and you can see these are all the homes that we have under contract and or pending that we are really waiting for closing. So this really gives us like a good idea of our next 30 to 60 days income. Because these are birds in the hand. We're expecting these to close if everything goes well, and we'll be receiving a commission check very soon. So you can see between these three pipelines, we get a good handle on our year's production and actually make real estate a little bit more of a predictable type of business. With our pending inventory, we're looking out at our gross commission income that's very, very predictable for the next 0 to 60 days, hopefully. With our buyers, we can look a little bit closer with our buyer agency or buyer inventory pipeline. We're typically looking at commission checks for the next 45 days to 3 to 6 months. And with our listing inventory, those take a little bit longer because we have to get them up for sale. We can look all the way out to a year with our listing leads. So if we want to have a good upcoming 12 months, the key is to focus on growing these three inventory pipelines, and we can get a pretty good handle on what our year is going to look like in advance. And if we know what our year is going to look like in advance, we can start making really good decisions with things like expenses, with time, with hiring people, with how much we should spend on marketing, how much we can afford, because we can look ahead with reasonable certainty by looking at these three pipelines and know the amount of income that we're going to be bringing in from all these forms. So I hope this helps. Again, our listing inventory pipeline, our buyer inventory pipeline, and our pending inventory pipeline. Let's get these set up and start working these so we can start growing our business and creating a more predictable upcoming year. Thanks again.